I actually took my glasses off and punched the record button. I wanted to make sure that it was recording. This is Fullerton Park in Davis, Oklahoma. It is named for my late friend Jerry Don Fullerton, brother to another late friend, Gary Dale Fullerton Sr., who is the father of my oldest adopted son, Dale. I have 3 adopted sons. I'm not literally their adopted father, it's just I feel like they're my boys. The oldest is Dale Fullerton. The second oldest is Michael DeAust. And the third oldest and youngest of all my boys is Matthew Stanley. Got to get a sip. I was sitting here just reflecting on things. Something I do quite a lot of lately. Okay, I'm going to start the car and we'll be driving while I'm talking. Roll the windows up. Turn the stereo off. There. It's really nice today, but I think I'm going to turn the AC on because it's a little warm in here. I got to go back by Sonic. I just left there and throw the trash into their dumpster. One of my pet peeves are people that just chunk it out on the road. And I've been guilty of that before, but I'm older and wiser now. And really do not do that ever. It's way early to go to the school and wait on them. That's okay, I'll drive around a little bit first. Called my best friend Jerry. He and Diane are traveling. When I got a hold of him, he was up by Purcell. And they're going up through Woodward. And they're in his RV. Well, I thought I was going to make a loop. Guess I'm not. Now the trash keep till I get to a trash can. This is the big city of Davis. There's a biblical tenet that I don't think was ever overruled, even though most preachers say that the dietary laws were changed. I don't really think they are. And I do one thing. I eat one thing I shouldn't. I'm addicted to it. I had it for breakfast this morning, and that's catfish. I love catfish, but at the time that those dietary laws were given, in the Old Testament, what a lot of people do not understand, swine were pretty much like we see today in the wild hogs. Nobody raised them for food, really. Old Testament times. They just didn't. And another thing about catfish and eels. Now, I still don't eat eel. I have before. I've eaten just about anything I could get in my mouth at one time or another. And I'm not justifying me eating catfish, don't get me wrong. The only catfish I eat are farm-raised. Why farm-raised? Well, they still feed off the bottom, but guess what? Fish with scales do as well. That's what a lot of people don't understand. But at the time God gave that edict not to, and he gave it to the children of Israel, not to eat anything in the ocean or in the fresh water that didn't have scales, any fish. At that time, the major cities dumped their sewage. They'd have chamber pots, and then they had folks that would take the chamber pots that would carry it down to the river and dump it in the river. In case you don't know what a chamber pot is, that's where you do number one and number two in your house, in your room. Now, castles during the Old Testament, big palaces, they had indoor plumbing, believe that or not. They would have places that let me get parked and the windows down and I'll continue to tell you what I got to say. The catfish at that time, what most people don't know, my brother Christopher, who is probably a world-class fisherman, catfish will eat anything that's protein. I think he proved the point to a guy one time, and took some ivory soap, which is lion protein, and put it on a hook, threw it out there, and caught a catfish on it. I think that's true. I don't really know that that's true, but I think he told me that. But anyway, that also includes fecal matter from animals and from people. Now, at a catfish farm, catfish is a much cleaner fish than it was back then. And I'm not excusing myself. Everybody has something they do wrong. That's just one of several things I do wrong. I eat catfish and I love it. Like I said, I had it for breakfast this morning. I did have a salad with blue cheese dressing and French fries, Cholula hot sauce, tartar sauce, and ketchup. Ate 2 corn dodgers and some French fries and a salad and catfish, and that's what I had for breakfast. I took Linda something much healthier, and what she had was a Spanish omelet with biscuit and gravy and no peppers on the Spanish omelet. The argument can be made both ways, you know. It can be made that the dietary laws no longer apply because Jesus did away with them. Me personally, I don't think he did. He said, I've come to fulfill the law, not to change it. I'm paraphrasing a great deal when I say that. But let me turn this camera around so you can see me while I'm talking to you. But the deal is, catfish that are farm raised are raised on catfish feed. They're not raised on animal guts and all the other things that they'd eat in the wild. And I have eaten my fair share of catfish that was caught, you know, but it's a cleaner fish than it was during biblical times. The second thing, pork. Now I'll explain why I don't eat pork, why I think you shouldn't. My wife loves bacon, you know. The thing about pork is the hogs that are raised for food now are a much leaner, much cleaner meat than the ones that you would find in the wild. Some folks did raise pigs back during the time of Moses, but basically swine were a wild animal, and they weren't considered food by a lot of people. There are historical records to prove what I just said. Just a second. There are several ancient authors, both around the time of Jesus and before and after. Josephus, Nicodemus, Gilgamesh. There's just bunches of them. You'll have to do your own research. I've read most of the historical volumes that deal with that due to insane curiosity on my part and wanting to know what I'm dealing with and what I'm thinking. However, here is why I don't think you should eat pork. And you probably shouldn't eat catfish either. Okay, Invertebrate and Vertebrate Zoology by doctors, both Dr. Frings, husband and wife. At one time, they were the primary biology teachers at the University of Oklahoma. I used to have my textbooks from all that. It got destroyed along with a whole lot of other stuff. But in their view on zoology, they did not consider lobster, crayfish, and shrimp as shellfish, even though the rest of the world promotes them as such. They pretty much viewed them, and I'll get back to the rest of it in a minute. They viewed lobster and crayfish and shrimp as basically grasshoppers, only an ocean. And both Dr. Frings and his wife were atheists. I don't believe they're alive anymore. But they said all the mechanics added up to them basically being an underwater insect that is pretty much identical to a grasshopper. Now, why did I say that? Why did I make that point? Because grasshoppers are something you can eat in the Bible. They're given as a food source. Locust and grasshoppers are not the same thing, but my friend Mike Doust made a point, and he was correct, and that is, and my friend that I go to church with, Charles Brady, also made a point. Both of them made similar points. When a grasshopper, when they bunch up and you've got clouds of them, they're in the thousands, sometimes millions, they get to a certain point in development that their physiognomy and physiology change. They get a lot bigger a lot quicker, and they eat any plant material they can find. If you had a swarm of locusts right now, light on these pecan trees and oak trees, they'd strip those trees bare. They have very strong jaws, and they just eat constantly. Those are considered food. But what makes them similar to shrimp and crayfish, especially shrimp and crayfish, crawdads? Because both shrimp and crawdads, you have a center vein that is the fecal matter that is in those underwater insects, and you have to go ahead and remove that vein. On shrimp, you make an incision down the back, you peel the vein out, and it's good to go. On crayfish, you've got 5 fins on the tail of a crayfish. You take the center fin, you twist it and pull, and that vein will come out. You can do that before you cook it. Now, pork. What is wrong with pork? There's a guy named Kerry Reams that was a physicist, the real deal, back in the 30s and 40s. Got a bus coming. Just a second. You know, I've had people light me up and say, Kerry Reams was nothing. He didn't know anything. If he didn't know anything, why did Maxwell Planck, you can look him up, Max Planck, Albert Edward Einstein, you can look him up, you probably heard of Einstein, and Karl Oppenheimer. Those 3 scientists held Kerry Reams in high esteem. So he was a real individual, really smart, really intelligent, and he understood the mechanics of frequency. What do I mean by that? Einstein proved that everything out here is comprised of energy. Energy equals mass times its constant squared. E equals mc squared. There's no layman's way to really simplify that and explain it, but study on it. Einstein was instrumental in helping develop the ability to split the atom and cause an atomic bomb, like the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The long and short of that is, he studied everything that people put into their system for food. It took him a few years. Our frequency, our vibrational frequency is 6.4 hertz. That's what we vibrate at. If you want to understand the actual frequency, study on an oscilloscope or take a bicycle, turn it upside down, pedal it, and you'll see those solid spokes become almost invisible. And that is because the speed and the energy frequency changes when you pedal it. Well, the point I'm making is pork has a frequency of about 9.6. So what happens when you eat it, it goes through your digestive system way too fast, and it causes damage. When it does that, it ages you. Most people don't understand that. And I've been in arguments with vegetarians and everybody else telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just quoting other individuals, and I give a way for folks to look them up because they do know what they're talking about. I'm not a scientist. I just happen to read on a lot of people that are. But like I said, I will continue to eat catfish. It's my body, my choice. I'm not quoting these abortion providers. I enjoy catfish. I really do. It's a sweet, tender, white-meated fish. You go catch a crappie, it cooks out about the same. So does tilapia, so does bass. And, you know, an alligator gar has white meat. Well, some have yellow. The males have the bigger the gar, the harder it is to cut the carapace, but they have scales, but they're armored scales, you know. But that's all I'm going to say on that subject. I've got a train over that way making noise. I'm at the school. I don't even have any idea what time it is. It's 2:17. So I've got about 43 minutes. And then the kids will all load up here. Ashton and Zara Rose will. My son Chris had to go get Walter from school. He fell and hit his head. Chris is digging post holes with a skid steer right now to put a fence back up around that sump next door to his house, the lagoon. Matt is taking, I think, Chad with him to Ada. They're loading the newer skid steer that had to be repaired in Ada, and they're picking it up and bringing it back. Linda is watching a Japanese or a Chinese soap opera. Seriously, it's called Who Rules the World or Who Rules the Earth or something like that. It's like 40 episodes, and I think she's on like about 30. I think it's cute. She's addicted to a Chinese soap opera. It's a historical soap opera replete with people flying through the air and Chinese magic and all that. I think it's hilarious. I'm sitting in her car waiting on children to get out of school. And Nick and Brandon, I was sitting eating breakfast at Boomerang, and they walked in. They're at work. My son Chris said tomorrow evening he can put the radiator in here, and then I've got to buy some radiator flush. The banks are all closed today, but I did get on a computer and transfer funds from my Oklahoma City account into my burner card so that I had ready access. And like I said, Jerry and Diane, they're on a trip having fun. My grandson Cheyenne Wolf is at a museum in Oklahoma City, went with a field trip. He's 16 years old, and his friends are giving him a hard time because he doesn't have a driver's license. I wouldn't turn Cheyenne loose in a car to save my life. I hope he doesn't see this. He's not mature enough for that. Benjamin's at his house, sitting on the steps, watching Bitty Boy Tigger, waiting on the kids to get home from school. That about covers all of it, I guess. I love all of you. I do. I want God to bless you. And if I was in the office, there'd be a sign over my shoulder saying, be kind. Be kind. Love you. God bless you. And bye.